19-year-old Jane stands frozen behind the crimson curtain of Horizon Arena, where 75,000 voices chant her name like a prayer to the heavens. Tonight, the world is watching. 180 countries, 2 billion eyes, fixed on the girl they call the Voice of Miracles. This is the performance that will carve her name into immortality, the moment every dream she has ever whispered has been leading toward. But 10 feet behind her, hidden from the cameras and the glory, her mother, Catherine, sits crumpled in a wheelchair, a medic standing beside her with a portable IV, her body a hollow shell of what it once was. Blood seeps from her nose, her hands tremble like autumn leaves. The doctors gave her hours, maybe less. Yet, through the agony tearing through her bones, Catherine grips her daughter's wrist with the last threads of her strength and whispers, "Sing, my child. Don't let me be the reason you lose everything." Jane's throat tightens. She knows the truth now, the terrible, unthinkable truth, that every note she has ever sung, every standing ovation, every viral moment has been purchased with her mother's life. The stage manager is shouting her name. The countdown has begun. 75,000 people are screaming, and Jane must decide. Walk onto that stage and become a legend while her mother's heart stops in the shadows, or step away from destiny, lose everything, and pray that love is enough to save the woman who gave her breath. Her hand shakes. The curtain glows red. The clock is ticking, and only one of them will survive this night. Jane's gift arrived long before the world knew her name. She was 3 years old when she hummed her first melody. Not a song she'd learned, but something ancient and instinctive, pulled from a place deeper than memory. Her mother, Catherine, was folding laundry in their small Bakari Heights apartment when she heard it. She stopped mid-fold, goosebumps crawling up her arms. The sound wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. It wrapped around the room like warm hands, and for the first time in months, the chronic ache in her lower back vanished, just gone. "Where did you learn that, baby?" Catherine whispered, kneeling beside her daughter. Jane smiled, gap-toothed and innocent. "The music told me, Mama." Catherine didn't understand then. She chalked it up to a child's imagination, but the signs kept coming. At 5, Jane sang at a neighbor's birthday party, and old Mr. Tendaji, who hadn't smiled since his wife's funeral, laughed so hard he cried. At 6, she entered her first school talent show, and the judging panel sat in stunned silence for a full 30 seconds after her performance. One of them, a hardened music teacher named Mrs. Okoth, approached Catherine afterwards with tears in her eyes. "That child doesn't just sing, she reaches inside you." By age 9, Jane was performing at community gatherings across Bakari Heights. It was at a church fundraiser that the miracle happened, the one that changed everything. A young boy named Kofi, 7 years old, had been mute since a traumatic accident 2 years prior. His mother brought him to every event, hoping, praying for something to shift. That night, Jane sang an old hymn, her voice soaring through the chapel like light through stained glass. Halfway through the second verse, Kofi opened his mouth and sang with her, his first words in 2 years. The room erupted. People wept. Videos were recorded. By morning, Jane's face was everywhere. Catherine watched it all with pride swelling in her chest and a faint, nagging exhaustion she couldn't explain. She told herself it was stress. It had to be, because the alternative, that her daughter's rise and her own strange creeping weakness were connected, was too impossible to accept. Not yet. By the time Jane turned 12, she was no longer just a local sensation. She was a phenomenon. Talent scouts attended her performances. Record labels sent contracts. A viral video of her singing at a national youth festival garnered 40 million views in 3 days. The comment section overflowed with testimonies. "I was planning to end my life tonight." Her voice stopped me. My anxiety disappeared while listening. I felt my grandmother's presence. I swear she was there. Jane didn't fully understand the weight of what she carried, but Catherine did. And Catherine was beginning to unravel. It started with headaches, dull, persistent, then sharper. Then dizziness during Jane's radio interview. Then fainting the night Jane signed her first major contract. She hid it well. She smiled through the nausea, laughed off the trembling hands, blamed everything on age and exhaustion. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she'd say whenever Jane looked at her with worried eyes. "Just need more rest." But Jane noticed. She wasn't blind. Her mother, once vibrant and full of life, now moved like a woman twice her age. Her skin had lost its glow. Her laughter came slower. And the timing. God, the timing was impossible to ignore. Every milestone in Jane's career was mirrored by a decline in Catherine's health. One night, unable to sleep, Jane wandered into her mother's room searching for painkillers. She opened the dresser drawer and found it, a worn leather journal, edges frayed, pages yellowed with age. Her grandmother, Louisa's handwriting, filled the pages, frantic and jagged. October 12th. Jane sang at the school today. I felt my heart skip. Coincidence, I tell myself, but I remember what my mother told me before she died. The gift is not free. It was never free. Jane's hands shook as she flipped forward. October 25th. The curse began with Agnes, my grandmother. A woman so consumed by envy, she made a pact with darkness itself to steal another's voice. She loved nothing, not her family, not her community, only her own glory. And the price? Every generation after, the daughter's gift would feed on the mother's life. There is no cure, there is no escape, only sacrifice. The journal slipped from Jane's hands and hit the floor with a hollow thud. Her chest tightened, her vision blurred. Her voice was killing her mother, and her mother had known all along. Jane confronted her mother the next morning, the journal clutched in her trembling hands. Catherine was in the kitchen, moving slowly, carefully, like someone trying not to shatter. When she saw what Jane was holding, her face went pale. "Mama," Jane's voice cracked, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me I'm not, that I haven't been." Catherine set down her teacup with shaking fingers. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. That same gentle, heartbreaking smile she'd worn through every hospital visit, every dizzy spell, every hidden moment of agony. "It's true, my love. Every word." Jane felt the room tilt. "How long have you known?" "Since your first lullaby. Since the day I realized your voice could do things no voice should be able to do." Catherine reached across the table, taking her daughter's hand. "And I chose this, Jane. Every single day, I chose this." "You are dying because of me." Jane's voice broke into a sob. "Every time I sing, every time I perform, I'm killing you." "No." Catherine's grip tightened with surprising strength. "You are not killing me. You are living. You are becoming everything you are meant to be. That's not murder, sweetheart. That's motherhood." Jane pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. "I won't do it anymore. I won't sing. I won't perform. I'll cancel everything." "You will do no such thing." Catherine's voice turned firm, the tone she'd used when Jane was small and testing boundaries. "The World Harmony Festival is in 3 weeks. Do you understand what that means? That stage will make you immortal. It will give you the life I never had. You will not throw that away. I'd rather lose everything than lose you. And I'd rather die knowing I gave you everything than watch you throw your destiny away for me." Catherine stood, her legs wobbling slightly, but her gaze steady. "This is not your choice to make, Jane. This is mine, and I've already made it." The argument ended there, but the terror in Jane's chest did not. 3 weeks. She had 3 weeks before the biggest performance of her life. 3 weeks before her mother's body gave out completely. 3 weeks to decide if a mother's love was worth more than a daughter's dreams. And no matter which choice she made, someone she loved would be destroyed. The days leading to the World Harmony Festival blurred together like a nightmare Jane couldn't wake from. Rehearsals, interviews, fittings for the custom gown she'd wear on stage. Everyone around her buzzed with excitement. Producers, managers, publicists, all celebrating the birth of a superstar. But Jane moved through it all like a ghost, watching her mother fade a little more each day. Catherine attended every rehearsal, sitting in the back row with a blanket wrapped around her frail shoulders. She clapped after every run-through. She smiled. She told Jane how proud she was. But Jane could see the truth behind the performance. Her breathing was labored. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint. The wheelchair wasn't optional anymore. 1 week before the festival, Catherine collapsed during a dress rehearsal. The medics rushed in. Jane screamed her mother's name, dropping the microphone and running to her side. Catherine was conscious, but barely, her pulse weak and erratic. At the hospital, the doctors delivered the final verdict with clinical detachment. Her organs are failing. We don't know why. Every test comes back normal, but her body is shutting down. If the stress continues, the doctor paused, choosing his words carefully. She has days, maybe a week if she rests, but any emotional or physical strain could accelerate the process significantly. Jane sat beside her mother's bedside, holding her hand, tears streaming silently down her face. "I'm pulling out of the festival." "You are not." Catherine's voice was a whisper, but it carried steel. "This is the moment we've worked for your entire life." "I don't care about the moment. I care about you." "Then honor me by not wasting what I've given you." Catherine's eyes, though sunken and tired, burned with fierce determination. "I'm going to be there, Jane, in that arena. I'm going to watch you become everything I dreamed you'd be. And when my time comes, I want my last memory to be you on that stage, shining like the star you are." Jane wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. She wanted to shake her mother and make her understand that no amount of fame was worth this price. But Catherine had the look, the one that said the conversation was over, the one that said she'd already made peace with her death. So Jane made a different decision, one she told no one about. She would go to the festival. She would walk to that stage, and at the last possible moment, she would make the choice her great-great-grandmother never could. She would choose love over glory, even if it meant losing both. The night of the World Harmony Festival arrived like an executioner's appointment. Jane stood in the dressing room backstage, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The gown they designed for her was stunning, midnight blue with silver embroidery that caught the light like stars. Her hair was styled in elegant waves. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a queen preparing for her coronation. But her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone walking toward a cliff, knowing the fall was inevitable. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. "5 minutes, Miss Jane," the stage manager called through the door. "The crowd is going absolutely insane out there." Jane's stomach twisted. She could hear them even from here. 75,000 voices chanting her name in unison, a thunderous roar that shook the walls. "Jane! Jane! Jane!" They'd been waiting for hours. Some had camped outside for days just to get close to the stage. This wasn't just a concert. It was a cultural moment, a phenomenon. The girl with the miraculous voice about to cement her legacy in front of the entire world. She took a shaky breath and left the dressing room, walking down the narrow corridor toward the stage entrance. The production crew rushed past her, headsets buzzing with frantic coordination. Cameras were positioned at every angle. The lighting rig above the stage was a masterpiece of technology, designed to make her look like an angel descending from heaven. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Everything except her. She reached the final corridor and saw her, Catherine, slumped in a wheelchair, a medic standing beside her with a portable IV drip. Her mother's face was ashen, her breathing shallow and ragged. But when she saw Jane approaching, she smiled, that same radiant smile that had carried Jane through every fear, every doubt, every moment of her life. "There's my star, baby," her voice whispered, barely audible over the roar of the distant crowd. Jane knelt beside the wheelchair, taking her mother's cold hands in hers. They felt like paper, like they might crumble if she held too tight. "Mama, please, let me take you back to the hospital. This is too much. You shouldn't be here." Catherine shook her head weakly. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, baby. Not for anything." She reached up with trembling fingers and touched Jane's cheek. "You are going to be magnificent tonight. The whole world is going to see what I've always known, that you were born for this." Tears blurred Jane's vision. "I don't want this if it means losing you." "Then don't lose me." Catherine's grip tightened slightly, her eyes locking at Jane's with fierce intensity. "Carry me with you. Every note you sing, every stage you stand on, I'll be there. That's not loss, sweetheart. That's forever." The stage manager's voice crackled through the speakers. 2 minutes. Jane, we need you at your mark." Jane's heart was tearing in half. The choice she'd planned, the choice to walk away, suddenly felt impossible with her mother's eyes on her, filled with so much hope, so much pride, so much love. How could she destroy that? How could she let her mother's sacrifice be for nothing? 30 seconds. The crowd's roar intensified, shaking the very foundation of the arena. Jane stood slowly, her legs unsteady. The medic adjusted Catherine's IV. The wheelchair was positioned just off stage in the wings, where Catherine could see everything but remain hidden from the cameras. Jane looked back one last time. Her mother raised a trembling hand, fingers forming a small heart shape. "I love you, Mama. I love you more, my beautiful girl. Now go. Show them who you are." Jane turned toward the stage entrance. The crimson curtain glowed ahead of her. Behind it, destiny waited. Behind her, death waited. And somewhere between those two impossibilities, a choice had to be made. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The curtain rose and the world exploded. 75,000 people erupted in a wave of sound, so massive it felt like a physical force. Jane stepped onto the stage, and the lights hit her like the sun itself, blinding, overwhelming, divine. The camera zoomed in, broadcasting her face to every corner of the globe. In living rooms, on phones, in stadiums across continents, 2 billion people stopped what they were doing to watch this moment. Jane walked to the center of the stage, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The orchestra behind her swelled with the opening notes of her signature song, the one that had gone viral, the one that had changed everything. The crowd quieted, anticipation thick in the air. This was it, the moment that would define her forever. But Jane couldn't hear the music. She couldn't see the crowd. All she could see was the wing of the stage, barely visible in the shadows, where her mother sat slumped in that wheelchair, the medic's face tight with concern. Catherine's eyes were closed now, her chest rising and falling in shallow, desperate gasps. She was holding on by a thread. One song, maybe two. That's all the time she had left. Jane's hand reached for the microphone, her fingers wrapped around the cool metal. The orchestra swelled higher, reaching the cue for her entrance. The entire world held its breath. And then Jane stopped. Her hand froze on the microphone. The music played on, but she didn't sing. Seconds ticked by. The conductor glanced back, confused. The crowd began to murmur. Something was wrong. The stage manager's voice crackled frantically in her earpiece. "Jane, you're on! Sing!" But Jane wasn't looking at the stage anymore. She was looking at her mother, really looking, at the woman who had sacrificed everything, her dreams, her health, her very life, so that Jane could stand in this light. The woman who had sung lullabies when Jane was scared, who had worked double shifts to pay for voice lessons, who had believed in her when no one else did. The woman who was dying right now, in the shadows, so Jane could shine. And in that moment, something inside Jane shattered and reformed. She thought of her great-great-grandmother Agnes, the woman who started this curse because she loved nothing but herself, who stole and schemed and destroyed for glory without ever caring about the cost to others. Agnes would have sung tonight. Agnes would have stepped over her mother's corpse to claim the spotlight. But Jane was not Agnes. The orchestra reached the second entrance cue. The crowd's murmur grew louder. Confusion rippled through the arena. Jane slowly, deliberately removed her hand from the microphone. She took a step back, then another. The music faltered. The conductor stopped, arms frozen in mid-motion. Jane turned away from the microphone, away from the lights, away from the 75,000 people and the 2 billion watching, and she walked off stage, toward the shadows, toward her mother. The arena erupted in complete commotion. Producers screamed into headsets, security rushed forward, cameras swung wildly, trying to follow her. But Jane didn't stop. She reached her mother's wheelchair, dropped to her knees, and wrapped her arms around her frail body. "I'm here, Mama," Jane whispered, breaking. "I'm here, and I'm not leaving you, not for anything, not for the world." Catherine's eyes fluttered open, filled with shock and confusion, and something else, something that looked almost like relief. "Jane, what are you doing? The performance is over," Jane said firmly, tears streaming down her face. "You're more important. You've always been more important, and I'm so sorry it took me this long to choose you." Behind them, the arena descended into complete pandemonium. But in that small shadowed corner of the stage, mother and daughter held each other. And for the first time in weeks, Catherine's breathing began to steady, just slightly, just enough. Neither of them knew it yet, but in that moment of impossible, selfless love, the kind of love Agnes had never known, the curse that had haunted their bloodline for 3 generations, began, quietly and invisibly, to break. The headlines were merciless. Jane abandons world stage, career over. The greatest no-show in music history. From superstar to failure in one night. Social media exploded with confusion, anger, and wild speculation. Fans who had worshipped her now called her ungrateful, a coward, mentally unstable. Producers threatened lawsuits. Sponsors pulled contracts worth millions. Her manager quit via a 2-sentence email. Within 48 hours, Jane's name went from celebrated to ridiculed across every platform on earth. But Jane wasn't reading the headlines. She was sitting in a quiet hospital room, holding her mother's hand, singing soft lullabies that no camera would ever capture. No stage, no lights, no audience of billions, just a daughter and her mother, and a love that asked for nothing in return. Catherine had been rushed to intensive care immediately after Jane walked off that stage. The doctors prepared the family for the worst. Her vitals were crashing, her organs were failing. They gave her hours, maybe less. Jane refused to leave her side. She sang through the night, old songs Catherine had taught her as a child, hymns from their church, melodies that held memories of better days. "I'm so sorry," whispered Catherine during a moment of consciousness, her voice paper-thin. "You gave up everything for me." Jane squeezed her hand gently. "I didn't give up anything, Mama. I chose what mattered. I finally chose what mattered." As dawn broke through the hospital window, something impossible happened. Catherine's monitor, which had been erratic and weak, began to steady. Her breathing, shallow and labored for weeks, deepened slightly. A nurse came in to check vitals and froze, staring at the numbers in disbelief. This doesn't make sense," the nurse murmured. "Her levels are improving." Jane looked up, afraid to hope. "What does that mean?" "I don't know, but whatever you're doing, don't stop." Over the next 3 weeks, Catherine's recovery defied every medical explanation. Her color returned, her strength rebuilt, her trembling stopped. Doctors ran test after test, searching for answers that didn't exist in their textbooks. Spontaneous remission, they finally called it, though their faces betrayed their confusion. One specialist pulled Jane aside privately. "I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I've never seen anything like this. It's as if whatever was destroying her body just stopped." Jane knew better, though she couldn't explain it. Something had shifted that night at the arena, something fundamental and mystical. But she didn't dare speak it aloud, terrified that acknowledging the miracle might somehow reverse it. Catherine was discharged after a month, walking out of the hospital on her own feet, radiant and whole. The medical staff lined the hallway, applauding, witnessing something they couldn't understand but recognized as sacred. Back home, Jane had resigned herself to a quiet life. She had destroyed her career. The contracts were gone. The fame had evaporated. She'd become a cautionary tale in the industry. The girl who had everything and threw it away. She didn't sing publicly anymore, didn't check her social media. She'd made her choice and she'd accepted the cost. Then, 3 months after that fateful night, a knock came at their door. Jane opened it to find Marcus Ose, one of the most respected producers in the world, standing on her doorstep. He'd been at the festival that night. He'd seen everything. "I need to talk to you about what you did, about what it meant, and about what comes next." His eyes held something Jane hadn't seen in months. Respect, not pity. "The world misunderstood you, Jane, but I didn't, and I think it's time we told them the real story." Marcus Ose didn't come with a typical recording contract. He came with questions. "Why did you walk away?" he asked, sitting across from Jane and Catherine in their small living room. "The world thinks you cracked under pressure, but I was there. I saw your face. That wasn't fear. That was choice." Jane glanced at her mother, then back at Marcus. "I chose love over everything else. That's all." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what I thought. And that's the story the world needs to hear." He leaned forward. "I want to produce an album with you, but not the one they wanted before. This one tells the truth about sacrifice, about love, about what really matters when everything is on the line. Your terms, your timeline, your way." Over the next 6 months, Jane recorded an album in her mother's presence, every song infused with the raw truth of what they'd endured. She sang about generational pain, about breaking curses through love, about choosing people over platforms. No auto-tune, no manufactured perfection, just her voice, unfiltered and whole. The album released quietly, without fanfare, but something remarkable happened. People didn't just listen, they felt. The songs spread organically, shared between friends, posted by people who said, This changed something in me. Within weeks, it became a global phenomenon, not because of marketing, but because of truth. Jane was invited to perform again, but this time it was different. Smaller venues, intimate settings, and Catherine was always there, front row, healthy and radiant, tears of joy streaming down her face. During one performance, an elderly woman from their ancestral village approached them afterwards. She studied Catherine with ancient knowing eyes, then examined Louisa's old journal that Jane now carried. The woman wept. The curse was born from Agnes's lovelessness. She sacrificed others for herself. The only power that could break such darkness was a love so complete it would sacrifice itself for another, expecting nothing in return. Your daughter did what 3 generations could not. She loved greater than the curse could devour. Jane had broken what seemed unbreakable simply by choosing her mother over her destiny, not knowing that in doing so, she'd claimed both. 2 years after that fateful night at Horizon Arena, Jane stood on a different stage. This one was smaller, more intimate, a benefit concert for families struggling with illness. Catherine sat in the front row, healthy and glowing, holding the hand of a young girl whose mother was sick. Jane's voice filled the room, not with supernatural power, but with something equally potent, authentic love. After the show, a reporter asked the question everyone wondered. Do you regret walking away that night? Do you ever think about what might have been? Jane smiled, looking at her mother. I think about what is. I have my mother. I have my voice. I have my integrity. I didn't lose my destiny that night. I found it. Real success isn't measured in applause or contracts. It's measured in who's still standing beside you when the lights go out. The reporter pressed further. What would you say to young people chasing their dreams right now? Jane's expression grew serious. Chase your dreams, but never sacrifice the people who helped you dream in the first place. Fame is empty if you are alone at the top. Love the people who loved you before the world knew your name. That's where real power lives. That's how curses break and miracles happen. Catherine joined her daughter on stage, and together they waved to the crowd. The applause was thunderous, not for a superstar, but for 2 women who chose each other when the world demanded otherwise. As the curtain fell, Jane whispered to her mother, "We did it, Mama. We rose together." "And nothing," Catherine replied, "will ever tear us apart again." Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched your heart, kindly like, comment, share and subscribe for more intriguing stories at Folktales by FP. Your support helps us bring you powerful stories that matter. See you in my next video, and remember, love is the greatest power you'll ever possess.